Hello, everybody. Mi charla se llama El Buda y la preparación del camino para el Cristo. El camino de la sabiduría nos conduce a la vivencia del verdadero amor o
The
razón
path of wisdom leads us to the experience of true love or pure reason. And through the union of love and reason, we move towards the fulfillment of the divine will. This leads us directly to the realization of the Buddha and the Christ, and that is why a brief reflection on them and their message is a way of serving the planetary life by liberty and intensifying the here and now through our individual, group, and global light. The school has been working hard for decades with the Great Invocation and with the keynote of each sign and of each spiritual year. And this allows us to perceive a very deep connection with the theme of divine light, the Buddha, and divine love, the Christ, making us conscious and active participants in the theme of the illuminating energy of pure reason as a means of helping to dispel the dense planetary glamour. Love is understood as pure reason, as intelligent activity that uses and relies on the mental plane for understanding and action. That is why so much of the training provided by the school is dedicated to understanding and working from the mental level, the luminous channel through which to manifest the strength of intelligent, inclusive, creative, and redeeming love. Love on the plane of the soul in hierarchy and in the consciousness of the Christ. Love as the antechamber for the understanding, identification, and expression of the divine will from which we human beings have so much to learn and understand. We know that the history of human evolution is the story of the evolution of consciousness, and we can imagine how, through successive incarnations, human beings have been prepared to become what they are today, with their current level of perception, in which the individual self has the potential to achieve integration with the higher planes of consciousness. The Tibetan says that it is a constant challenge for the hierarchy to know the extent to which humanity can grasp the exact truth, how truth can be presented to humanity, and what aspects of the truth must be conveyed at any given time for man to resolve difficulties and move forward on his path of return. That is, those in the spiritual world must come to an exact determination as to the exact moment and the proper condition of humanity for the sending forth of their messengers to give humanity the necessary impetus to take the next step that will bring it closer to fulfilling the divine purpose. What men can accomplish and know changes from time to time. Thus, each avatar, greater or lesser, leaves their impression of light and love in a cumulative process that constitutes a stepping stone for the next revelation. Apparently, in ancient times, each avatar arrived as a separate event and affected a small portion of humanity. But we increasingly perceive that all these events are united and that they blend and support each other in the inner aspect of life, that each avatar is a powerful dynamo with its energy affecting all manifestations of planetary life. Thus, we can imagine the number of high spiritual entities that accompanied the moment of the Buddha's enlightenment, the birth in Bethlehem, and the event of Golgotha, for example. When the Tibetan tells us that the Buddha lends his garments to Christ, do these words not mean that the Buddha made available to the Christ all his accomplishments to help him in fulfilling in his high mission? The Buddha prepared the ground with the revealing light of important recognitions so that the Christ could realize his sowing of love, which is the ultimate goal of our planet. We have been told that in an earlier incarnation, the Buddha had already attained the rank of Bodhisattva, and for this reason, he had participated in everything that had happened in the evolution of time. This allowed him, through an immense sacrifice, to bring us the doctrine of compassion and love, and that made it possible for us to also attain the goal of liberation. The Pali Sutras tell us that humanity was following a path to destruction, lost without a guide and without protection. And that is when the Buddha, moved by great compassion, seeing the cause from the effect, found the means to remedy the evils that afflicted the decadent humanity of his time. The Buddha's teachings apply to daily life. He dealt first and foremost with the circumstances of life and considered that the most important task lay in affirming reality wherever we are and in trying to perfect ourselves in order to drive evolution before dealing with intellectual speculation. That's why his legacy is tremendously practical and constitutes a way of life. His disciples were required to observe a constant disciplining of words, thoughts, and deeds, for without this there can be no success on the path to perfection. With the knowledge of the familiar Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, the Buddha drew the map to free us from the pain of earthly existence, ignorance, and desires. This noble path leads to the six perfections: compassion, morality, patience, courage, concentration, and wisdom. He also pointed out 10 great obstacles, which he called fetters, that must be removed in order to attain higher knowledge. These are the illusion of personality, doubt, superstition, physical passions, hatred, earthly attachment, desire for pleasure and rest, pride, complacency, and ignorance. The highest Buddhism, imbued with the energy of pure reason, explains in the smallest details the actions of the senses and motives of the intellectual process. His teaching explains that every human being is his own creator and liberator, and that personal efforts are required to achieve the lofty goal of liberation. The path begins by focusing on the purification of the mind and heart, and then proceeds to the expansion of consciousness. This great avatar invested an immense degree of sacrifice to enlighten human consciousness so that it would be prepared for the event of the Christ. This sacrificial collaboration is present in all creation, so much so that we could say that creation is the result of a divine sacrifice. The Buddha helped the human being to understand all that lives within his soul, and the Christ, love transformed into action, showed us the nature of the difficult path towards perfection, followed to its ultimate consequence, as St. Paul put it. What you sow does not come to life unless it dies. 1 Corinthians 15:36, thereby indicating the sacrifice of the Lamb. The Christ was able to unite the highest spiritual planes with the densest materiality, remaining as a central point, redeeming and elevating. The Christ is the great ideal, completely fulfilling the divine will and demonstrating the path that humanity must follow in order to realize the purpose for which our world was created, a planet of pain, as we are seeing so palpably at this time in history. But at the same time, the world is the place where a cosmic experiment is being conducted through pain. The eyes of very high entities are focused on this experiment, as they look forward to the gifts that our work can bring to the whole. For just as our progress depends on the progress of the kingdoms below our own, so it is said that even God himself progresses through the advances in the spiritual evolution of humanity. In the spiritual world, everything is related to support and unity, and we are invited to actively contemplate this world of collaboration that ever exists upon the spiritual planes, and to consciously participate in reconfiguring our lives according to this inner pattern, so that the words of the Lord's Prayer may be fulfilled. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Los ojos de elevadísimas entidades están enfocados sobre este experimento, mientras esperan con sumo interés los dones que nuestro trabajo puede aportar al todo. Pues así como nuestro progreso depende del progreso de los reinos inferiores al nuestro, se dice que hasta Dios mismo progresa mediante los avances en la evolución espiritual de la humanidad. En el mundo espiritual, todo es apoyo y unidad, y somos invitados a contemplar activamente este mundo de colaboración de los planos espirituales y a participar conscientemente para conformar nuestra vida de acuerdo a ese modelo, a fin de que se cumplan las palabras del Padre nuestro. Hágase tu voluntad como en los cielos, así también en la tierra. Gracias.
Gracias, Dora. It's a joy to hear the sound of the Spanish language, so that as one school group throughout the Americas, we hear these two languages, dominant languages, English and Spanish. Gracias.